back to Tech Chat Tuesdays. I am Manisha Joshi, and I am here with Earl Kelly, founder and owner of EK3 Technologies. Today we are going to be talking about data storage. Have you ever opened your closet and found old DVDs, old USB sticks, SD cards, photos, and you're thinking to yourself, what do I do with all this data? You don't want to lose it, but how do you safely store it? And what in the world is the cloud? We're going to answer all of these questions with Earl. So Earl, as you know, a lot of us get into that organization mode, right? And we find CDs and, USB sticks of photos and files. And, these are important things we want to keep, documents. What is the best way to store these things? Because there's so many options out there that are both physical, like USB and SD cards, and invisible, such as the cloud. So can you help us understand?
Absolutely. So it depends on what it is, and it depends on the media that it's on. So if you have a DVD or a Blu-ray or something like that, you're going to have to keep that, because most of those have what's called, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's DCRMA.
Okay.
But it basically is like a digital copyright for that material.
Gotcha. Okay.
So ripping the information off of the DVD, which is basically taking the DVD and making a copy of it,
that's kind of illegal?
That is kind of illegal. As a matter of fact, I believe, for those of you who are Gen Zers and millennials, that was something called Napster, and we got in big trouble for Napster, right?
Yes.
So if it's a DVD or a CD that you purchased, it has to stay in that format.
Okay.
So unfortunately, now some of them, like iTunes, etc., used to be able to rip it, but you could keep it, and you could keep it for yourself. And there's been a little bit of changes, but I know DVDs are a big no-no.
Okay.
So CDs are a little different. But
okay.
So that particular media you have to keep. Other media, USB sticks, USB drives, etc. People have so many of them.
Yes.
I know so many people that are like, I've got this on this, and I've got that on that, and I've got that on that, and I've got that on that. There is a limit to the time that you can keep information there.
Really?
Okay. So I don't know, without looking it up, I don't know what that limit is. But it's not going to be forever. Our current modern storage devices aren't, even DVDs aren't as good as some of the microfiche we had, or films, and some of the stuff that they keep in these big salt mines, because they want to preserve it forever.
Right.
So I always recommend moving it somewhere. Now the problem is, when I say moving it somewhere, I mean moving it to some sort of cloud storage.
Okay.
Now the problem with that is it can get expensive depending on how much space that you want or have or need. But it's available anywhere, anytime, and you can save it.
Okay.
So my recommendation, and I'll tell you what I do currently, is I have consolidated all of my pictures into, we've had this conversation before, but I have an Android phone.
Okay.
So I've consolidated all of my pictures into Google Photos.
Okay.
And if Google Photos is very inexpensive, I want to say it was $100 a year or $50 a year or something like that for the amount of photos I have. Now, there's a free amount, and then there's a cost amount. So I have all of my photos in that. I also have a backup of all of my photos in my OneDrive account. Okay. But I think in the long run, Google Photos is where they're going to stay. Keep in mind, today, that is the best place for them. That doesn't mean in 10 years from now there's not going to be something else for that to happen. But today, that's the best place for them. The other problem we're going to run into, and I really didn't answer your one question about the cloud, but we'll circle back to that. How's that? But the one thing that you're going to run into, and I find this to be an interesting study, is if you think back for people my age and a little older, you got a box of pictures from your mom or your grandma or somebody, and you're like, who are these people? And you go through and you say, okay, this is Aunt Judy, and this is a picture of Aunt Judy. 100 years from now, where are those pictures going to be?
Yeah.
And I find this to be an interesting study in humanity, in that we're changing the way that we're documenting. We document we take more pictures now per day than we used to actually develop 50 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we have this massive amount of data and massive amount of information, and what are we doing with it?
Yeah.
Where is it stored at? Mine is stored, when I take a picture, it's taken on my phone, it's automatically uploaded to my Google Photos.
Okay.
If you have an Android phone, you can set it up so that once you take a picture, it's automatically uploaded to your iCloud account.
Okay.
So you've got those, but those are just for you. It's important to share your albums with other people as well.
Okay.
Even if it's just your significant other, so that they can get into those images. Now,
earlier we had the question, Earl, of what is the cloud? It's a very, very mysterious area. We don't really know when people say upload it to the cloud. So many of our viewers, what does that mean? Does it go off into cyberspace? And also another fear with the cloud is who is managing it, who's watching it, and who has access to it besides us.
Right. So the cloud is, God, I use the word bajiggity and I don't ever get that in.
You're going to learn a lot of vocabulary with
I know.
Earl.
The cloud, people get all bajiggity about the cloud, okay? And the cloud really just means a computer or a set of computers that someone else owns.
Okay.
So as a business person, I can buy a giant set of servers, I can set it up, and I can put it on the internet and sell space on it, and I've created a cloud. Okay? So you have two types of cloud. You have private cloud and you have public cloud. Let's start with public cloud. So public cloud is things that we use every day.
Okay.
So Google Photos, iPhone Cloud, iCloud. Let me see. All of a sudden, I can't think of what else we use.
There are a lot of them out there, though.
Things we use. Right, I'm going to start over. Things we use every day. So Google Photos, iCloud, the App Store.
Would Dropbox be one of them? Because
Dropbox
that's something
would
that
be
I
one.
use.
Dropbox, OneDrive.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other things where you go and you download stuff. Right. Those are all public cloud services.
Okay.
So most of what we do on the internet is run in some sort of public cloud.
Okay.
Private cloud, on the other hand, is something that's done locally. So for our particular clients, we have servers that are set up that are owned by us.
Okay.
But our client pays for time on our servers. Okay. And so we manage the servers, we control the servers, but instead of buying that hardware, our clients are just paying for time. Okay. So they don't have to make a large investment. They're just paying for time on our server, and they're the only ones that can access that information. So that's a private cloud.
Okay.
So if you can get on it without anything, that's a public cloud. Anything that you logged into, that's a public cloud. Anything that your company has, that's a private cloud.
Okay. Good to know. So in all of these and you talked about, can't do DVDs, but things that are physical, as far as, is there, like you said earlier, is there a lifetime? I mean, if I've got very old SD cards, right, because I have hundreds of photos of, my kids, work I've done and all of that, and I have them categorized in little Ziploc bags with sticky notes and an SD card. And I'm thinking they'll be sitting on there for life, but would they actually, just like old photos, fade? Or they get yellow over time? Is there something that happens to these physical storage items? Because I also have friends who will store movies or music on the big, they look like, what do you call them? The big hard drives that look like giant books. Over time, do those, get destroyed or?
They do. As a matter of fact, we just had an incident.
Okay.
So, and there's two different things. So to answer your question, yes, there is a time limit for that particular technology. The problem that you're going to run into with SD technology is that we're already on SD micros. Okay. So you have regular SD cards, and you've got copper connections on your SD card that's going to connect to a computer. The other thing is, you'll be hard-pressed to find a computer that has an SD slot on it any longer. I tend to have one, but not every computer has an SD slot, and eventually they'll go away.
Really?
Because we've moved on to other technology. Just like it's really hard for us to find a CD now in a computer. So eventually that technology will go away. So you will have to keep up with the technology that you have.
Okay.
And you can't, you can, and there is a time limit. I mean, you could keep an SD drive forever. The problem is that particular device, you may not be able to find drivers for, or we may be on Windows 15 by then, So
it's important to kind of keep it evolving and keep it
correct,
fresh.
keep up with your technology.
Okay.
So that's why putting it in the cloud is better.
Okay.
Because someone other than you is keeping up with that technology.
Now with that, a lot of people ask, okay, it's in the cloud, someone is managing it. What if the internet shuts down? What if Wi-Fi goes out? What if, not the world comes to an end, but where I'm heading towards is, what if something shuts down or the site is hacked? What happens to information that I trusted a source to manage?
Well, now that's another question, and
Okay.
I'm going to answer that.
Okay.
I want to go back one more thing because I forgot to share something with you. There was just recently and when I say recently, like 2 to 3 weeks ago,
okay.
there was an interesting thing that happened with Western Digital MyBooks. Western Digital MyBooks are what's called network attached storage,
Okay.
which is basically a small USB drive, little house,
Okay.
that you can plug into the internet
Okay.
and you can store information on. So the MyBook was many years ago was discontinued.
Okay.
And I want to say it was somewhere between 8 to 10 years ago it was discontinued. But a lot of people are still using them because they put their data on there and they don't want to change. But
Right.
you need to keep up with technology. What happened was because those things are connected to the internet and because they were end of life, the manufacturer was no longer supporting them. So they got security holes in them.
Okay.
And then people found that there was an exploit that someone would try to get the data off of it through the internet because they hadn't updated the data and they were recycling them.
Wow.
And so Western Digital came out with a notification that said if you're still using this device, you need to unplug it from the internet immediately.
Wow.
And so when I say keeping up with the technology, SD cards aren't going to do that because it is offline.
Right.
But if you have a USB device or a USB drive and it's online, you always need to make sure that it's updated.
Okay.
Now, going back to your other question about who's managing the cloud. So just because you put it in the cloud doesn't mean that it's 100% safe.
Right.
Okay. And I think that is the fallacy that we have. I'm going to use big vocabulary words in this particular episode, but that's the fallacy that we have with the cloud. Is we think, okay, it's in the cloud, and I'm just not going to worry about it anymore. And many people believe that Microsoft and Google and all of the people who have these big cloud services, Amazon's another one, big cloud service, that it's their responsibility to back up your data. And the answer to that is no, it's not. Okay. You're using their information, but you need to read the T's and C's. That's the terms and conditions. Because just because you put your data on their servers does not mean that they're in charge of backups. So always make sure you have a backup. Like I said earlier in this episode, I use Google Photos, but I back them up to OneDrive. Because you always need to make sure you have a backup. As an IT person, I always make sure I have a backup of a backup of a backup, right? Now, you don't need to get berserk about it, okay? Because the odds that OneDrive is going to go, down, and the odds that Google Photos is going to go down is like 1 in a gazillion. Okay? But at least have them available. You never know when something might happen. Normally, what's going to happen is you're going to accidentally delete your photos more than Google's going to delete them. Or you're going to accidentally move all your photos in OneDrive somewhere before Google does. So just make sure you have a backup no matter what you do with it.
So a question on Google Photos, being that when we Google anything, we see a lot of photos and images come up that users have added. If you go to a restaurant and you've taken pictures of, the venue and your food and you post it on Google Photos, it's public so that others can see the venue. when you put your photos in Google Photos, is there a way to make it so it's not public, so that it is only your photos?
So if I'm understanding correct, that's a little different.
Okay.
So a photo in Google Photos is only public if I make it public.
Okay, so there is that choice.
There
I wanted
is
to
that
make
choice.
sure. Okay.
So you can tag a photo to a particular restaurant, and
Okay.
then that's public, and then they can see it.
Okay.
But just because you put it in Google Photos doesn't mean that everybody can see it.
Good to know. That way everyone doesn't see that I eat 3 scoops of ice cream, you know?
Correct. Everyone doesn't need to know what everyone had for lunch. That's
Exactly.
what Instagram is for.
Exactly. Well, I hope all of you out there learned something great on this episode of Tech Chat Tuesdays. As always, Earl welcomes your comments and questions. And Earl, what is the best way to reach you?
As always, you can reach us at our sales email at sales@ek3tech.com. That's sales at ek3, the number 3, tech.com. Or you can call us at 904-337-1610.
We hope you join us next time for Tech Chat Tuesdays. And don't forget, back up your data. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
And that means that it's a computer that's run by someone else
Okay.
that is available to the public.
Sorry, sneezed.
I was doing great too. I can't
Excuse
even
me.
remember where I
I'm
was.
so sorry. Excuse
It's fine. You were like, achoo!
I was trying so hard to wiggle my nose.